Welcome to the March 12th, 2025 meeting for the City of Lake Forest Plan Commission. My name's John Dixon, and I am Chairman of the Plan Commission. At this time, I'd like to ask my fellow commissioner members to introduce themselves. I'll start on my far left and go clockwise.
I'm Paul Thomas.
Lisa Nearing.
Jamie Moorhead.
Barrett Davy.
Thank you. And from the City of Lake Forest, we have Kathy Cernak here tonight. The next item on the agenda this evening is consideration of the commission minutes from the October 9th, 2024 meeting. Are there any comments, questions, or clarification on the minutes? Hearing none, do I have a motion to accept the October 9, 2024 meeting minutes?
Motion to accept October 9, 2024.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The next item is the consideration of the meeting minutes from November 13th, 2024. Are there any comments or questions to those minutes? Meeting?
You only received the November minutes.
Right.
We haven't
Yeah.
gotten you the October minutes. Those both were very long meetings, so we're still working through those.
So then we
So
should,
approval of the November, and we'll get you the October at your next meeting.
my bad, I apologize.
I thought those were,
Sorry, I thought.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
I thought they were October.
It's been a while since we've been together. So are there any comments or question on the, just for clarification, the November 13th, 2024 minutes?
No.
Hearing none, do I have a motion to accept those minutes?
So moved.
So moved.
Moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. The first and only matter before the commission this evening is discussion of the Bank Lane Streetscape Enhancement Plan. No commission action is being requested tonight on the presentation here. But at this point, I'd like to ask any of the commission members if there's any conflicts of interest, ex parte communication in this matter.
No.
Hearing none. At this time, I'd like to swear in everyone who thinks they're going to testify this evening. And I only see one here, so please stand if you would.
Chairman Dixon, it isn't necessary to.
And for an, okay.
And I'll just give a little bit of an introduction. You may hear some of the construction work going on out there. The commission, and I forget, going back a year or so ago, approved an update to the Central Business District chapter of the comprehensive plan. As part of that, there was a great deal of focus on Bank Lane. And as a follow-up to the council's approval of that chapter, the city did engage the Lakota Group, who has been working with us on the Deer Path streetscape, to develop a plan for Bank Lane. And we wanted to come here tonight just to update you. The plan has been through a number of public engagement activities, and the council has decided to move forward with one block of the Bank Lane improvements because it is the block directly north of Deer Path, and we're going to have the area torn up and closed, and we don't want to come back and do it the next year. So I've asked Kevin Clark to be here tonight. He's a principal with the Lakota Group, to give you an overview. And as you saw before the meeting, some of the hardscape materials are provided for you. Kevin, thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you for that clarification, Kathy. I'm stepping all over my toes this evening. Kevin, please go ahead and start your presentation.
Great, thanks. Hopefully I don't step over my toes. I'm just going to give you an overview of where we've been and where we ended up for the enhancement plan. Again, I'm Kevin Clark. I'm with the Lakota Group. We're landscape architects, urban planners. We've worked in town before and really enjoy being in town. I could skip over this because Kathy already talked about this. This project started because you want to create and enhance something that's special, right? Your downtown, your central business district, and Bank Lane was a big conversation. So we were engaged to go through a process to think about how to make it so that it enhances your downtown and really thinks about, it's the space between the great architecture and the buildings, and you've got the the great space already at Market Square. So how do we kind of extend that? And so our process was essentially 3 phases. We started with engage and assess. That's where we talked to folks, looking physically out there at the study area, which I'll have a map in a second, just to see what's going on. And then we're doing some concepts. We brought a bunch of concepts back and got feedback from the stakeholder groups and the public. Brought it to the Historic Preservation Commission, got input there, and then refined a plan, which is our final enhancement plan, which I'm going to talk about. The engagement that we did, we had a few sessions here. We invited stakeholders in. We had big maps, printouts, asking people about what they wanted to see, showing character images, kind of getting that visual preference survey out there so people can weigh in on things. And then we brought back concepts. So we had about 150 people participate in that. We had an online survey with another 100 respondents. And we even went out to a concert outside because it was a nice evening, and we engaged people at a table out there. So we did a few different things to get different perspectives on what Bank Lane means and how we can make it better. And all of that was weighed in as we came up with ideas. Some of the big themes from that, heard a lot about preserving the historical character of the downtown and central business district, establishing more continuity and cohesion with Bank Lane as a major north-south, or kind of like this, I don't know, major, but like this north-south that goes all the way through downtown, and it's kind of special. The character of it being kind of narrow in different areas and connecting all the way from Vine to Wisconsin. Enhancing aesthetics and the experience. Right now, the aesthetics, I would say, it's kind of bland. And there are some areas that really need a lot more attention. So thinking about how we can enhance that and make it feel better. Promoting a more pedestrian-friendly design. Thinking about, as I've been out here, after I came out here, the first day after school, and there were kids all over at the ice cream shop. And they're on scooters, bikes, walking everywhere, and parents and strollers and all kinds of stuff. And then you've got cars. And so just thinking about how all of those things work together and how can we kind of flip it to be more pedestrian friendly. Expanding on unique features. To me, that's the Market Square area and things that are happening, and just linking some of the great things that are new, maybe hometown to Deer Path, all of these kind of great uses you have. And Bank Lane touches all of those. And then improving, traffic safety and parking, and thinking about how all of that plays a role. Key city objectives as we got into this were, just setting expectations for future development. We know there may be that happening in certain parcels. So just thinking about how the interface of new development or redevelopment would interface with the streetscape itself. Any improvements, we just wanted to think about that. Elevating that experience so people want to come here again and again and shop. Complementing Market Square. We know that's your crown jewel. We're not trying to steal that. We're just trying to link to it and make sure that we're bringing people in. To me, this is a great opportunity for people to get out of their cars. You have all these great parking lots. To me, great situation. Park, walk around. So to me, this was a great opportunity to do that. Just building upon your unique character, and again, balancing pedestrians and creating just a venue for gathering. So when we got into this and we assessed it, all the way from Wisconsin on the north to Vine on the south, different characters. It's not the same all the way through, and that's the thing about Bank Lane. It's just it kind of changes from almost like an alley-like condition to kind of a wider roadway on the south, and then areas like to the north where there are more curb cuts, more conflicts with cars. So really breaking it down into these 5 areas, we're calling the North Gateway, Market Square North and Market Square South, the central area, which is north of Illinois and where the diagonal parking is, and then the South Gateway area, which goes down to Vine, and Deer Path Inn is right there on that block. So this is really hard to do. I always have struggled because it's so far away, but I'm going to start with Block 3. Because Block 3 is the block, to me, we're starting that now, right? The construction and more detailed design But this is where it came out in the wash, and the idea that we can tie into Deer Path and create a kind of continuous streetscape coming around the corner. And things to consider here were the scale of Bank Lane here is really, we kept hearing European or almost like that alley type scale, very narrow. You have a few parallel parking spots. So we did a bunch of different concepts, but this is what was the preferred concept. And that concept shows brick pavers throughout, both in the street and the sidewalk, allowing for more flexibility. So that was something that if we are able to, we're showing the idea that we can have bollards on the ends and close it off for maybe a festival, a market, on the weekend, whenever, so that you can have tents out there and people walking out on the street and enjoying that. Keeping in mind kind of those east-west connection points to parking and other things. Just always trying to have some kind of connection there visually, so we kind of show the idea, at least conceptually, of changing the paving there so that you can go to that, what I'd call that cool little plaza or alley behind that leads to Starbucks, and then extending to the west as well. And then, in this area, we wanted to avoid clutter. You don't have a lot of opportunity for landscape or trees, so maybe we're just doing some urns or planters that are above ground, so you can have some nice, you can soften that up, bring in a little color. And we have a palette of materials that I'll show beyond what we have over here. There's things like lighting and bollards and things like that, benches and little wall elements that were inspired by the masonry walls that you guys have out here in front of City Hall, and we're doing on Deer Path as well. So this is the South Market Square area tying right into Market Square. And that'll be the block that will be under construction at the, concurrently with Deer Path. And this just kind of shows an enlargement and a cross section of that, trying to, again, eliminate some of the impediments and allowing for some of the new businesses that want to put an investment like Left Bank or others that want to bring people outside to eat or dine. So just allowing for that to happen and creating spaces for that to happen. Moving north to the North Market Square block, what we really did is we didn't take out any parking spaces, but we kind of shifted some stuff around to align with what's happening on the blocks, and specifically, you have this great plaza with the water feature there, but then there's a parking space right by it. So we tried to shift some of that stuff around so that it made more sense and felt more cohesive. But again, in this block, it still has that tight character. So again, bringing the brick pavers in this zone as well. We have a little bit more room to get some street trees or some landscape elements in there. We've been very judicious about where those go, because we want to make sure that anything we put out there really thrives and does well. But in this zone, we have a few more areas where we do that. We're bringing in some seating and some benches. And really providing there's still a few parallel parking spaces in this area that allow for, those kind of convenient spots is what I would call them, because they're just, if we're going to pull up and go to the post office or go, just hop out for a few minutes, and you've got those as convenient spots. And then this kind of shows an enlargement of that cross section, and how kind of we're delineating the parallel parking with the granite banding, and separating that from the vehicular lane. It's a visual thing to be able to separate all of those things within the zone, from pedestrian to where vehicles are to where parking is, and then pedestrian on the other side. Heading to the north, what we're calling the North Gateway area, much different character. You've got Hometown, and every time I go there, it's crazy busy, and there's a ton of people there, and it's a great use. But then there is a lot of curb cuts. There are a lot of curb cuts in this area. It's just way more open. You don't have kind of that street wall frontage consistently throughout this zone, particularly on that west side where the city lot is. One thing that we proposed here is bringing a masonry wall that is that would screen the parking and closing off one of the curb cuts of that public parking lot on the west, the one that's furthest to the north, so you don't have so many conflicting curb cuts all in that one zone, because there are people on their bikes and walking around right there, so just trying to eliminate some of the conflict areas, because you really don't need to have it. You can really circulate internally on that parking lot, and that to me kind of helps close off that gap that exists and creates almost like a wall effect that you would if there was a building there. Notice that we don't, this section, we do just have asphalt, an asphalt drive, just like you have out there now, but then bringing some of that, the brick paver element at the intersections and at the crosswalks, so we have a consistent look throughout. So just bringing some of that in certain zones where pedestrians are, where we want cars to slow down, where we know we're coming to a stop, just so you have that linkage and you create the cohesive material palette. And we've got more street trees in this zone because we just have more light, we have more area, and I think just softening that up a lot would really help. There are some overhead utilities here. I think that's a consideration that ultimately we want to bury those. There's not as many here as on this very, very far south of the corridor. But just thinking about how we can improve the aesthetics of this area by bringing a little bit of the landscape and some of these other elements that we're talking about. And this just kind of shows a cross section of that with the tree and a little bit of landscape instead of overhead utilities and concrete. Block 4, the central block. This is the block that's south of Deer Path. This is the block that has diagonal parking now. We tested a range of things here, from parallel parking to diagonal parking, weighing what people thought, and as of now, we're showing this concept that has diagonal parking, but it improves upon what's out there now. Right now, if you go and turn from Deer Path onto Bank Lane going south, you're basically headed into a car that's parked diagonally. There's nothing that signifies there's a travel lane. So what we're doing is formalizing that. We're bringing in landscape islands, so you have this very delineated travel lane versus parking lane. And also we've extended the parking lot, the parking distance a little bit, because right now it's super tight. And a lot of people will park, and particularly backing out, coming out of the, you have this conflict coming out of the parking lot to the east, where people are kind of backing up into the parking lot. People are trying to come out of there. So really trying to just delineate everything by those visual materials and making sure that we have the right dimensions. But then also just creating a better pedestrian environment with the trees, the street trees kind of being more consistent. Maybe a little mid-block brick paver area that, to break this up. This is kind of a longer block on Bank Lane in town. So just a way to bring that material back, and then treating the crosswalks as we are everywhere else, so that you have this really consistent pedestrian environment that links all the way from south to north and vice versa. And this shows kind of how that works with the diagonal parking. You have the trees instead of, right now, the diagonal parking just abuts to, at least at the corner there at that parking lot, it's pretty open and it's the most pleasant environment. And then the last block is that block where Deer Path Inn is on the north side, all the way down the Vine. This is a different character. Lots of stuff happening here. You've got the back side of these businesses, which aesthetically I don't think anyone's really thrilled about. There are overhead utilities there as well. And then you've got these really nice residences there. There's a couple condo buildings, and they've got all their nice landscape on their property. So the goal here was really to clean up the backside of that kind of shopping center and those businesses. And what we're showing is bringing in that masonry wall element I talked about as a screen, as a way to screen the service areas and the trash and utilities. We would need to bury the overhead electrical utilities if we were going to do this concept. But then really focusing on a pedestrian connection on that west side with some trees, continuous sidewalk all the way from Vine that brings you all the way, that would lead all the way up north toward kind of the central portion of downtown. And again, we're breaking this up with the brick pavers and just bringing that element back into it. And this is kind of an enlargement of what that looks like. And right now you can see in the existing cross section, there's the overhead utilities. And what we're showing is kind of a taller masonry wall to help screen the back sides of those buildings and bringing in the trees along the sidewalk on the west side. And then just the material palette. This was, as we were forming this, we've kind of moved beyond this a little bit with some of the materials here, where we've made some specific selections as we got into the one key block, but always thinking about what it could be and bringing in that higher quality masonry paver, and then complementing it with the granite, which you guys have in Market Square, which is going to go in Deer Path, and using some of those same materials as a complement, and just a higher quality material. And just other elements that will be in different sections of this, whether it's the street lighting where you guys have that matches your existing, and then the benches and the movable planters, some trees and tree grades, not too many of those, but we have some conditions where it's too narrow to have those in planters, so they would be in grades. And then the removable bollards, as well as the bollard on the left side, are the kind that are mimicking the ones in Market Square, which will go at the corner at Deer Path and Bank Lane. I think, oh yeah, and the last slide, just a series of elements, looking at some of what's happening outside of City Hall and using that as a guide for creating a series of either seat walls or masonry screen walls, and then also using that in piers where we can have a small gateway sign in key locations along Bank Lane, just to denote where you are. And we're even using this idea of an inlay in the paving that says Bank Lane at the intersections. So those are kind of the palette of materials at a higher level, at a conceptual level. I think that's my last slide. I can answer questions, and if we want to kick the bricks, so to speak, we can do that again, but appreciate your time.
Kevin, thank you so much for that presentation. I guess I have a question just in terms of, should the commissioners feel free to ask Kevin questions all the way from Wisconsin to Vine, or just focus on what is going to be done now, which is Market Square to Deer Path?
Questions about the whole length, knowing that as you get beyond that one block, there is still study to be done. I think the one block of Bank Lane and the improvements on Deer Path will really be used to inform us on how does the hardscape material work? How do the tree grates work? What do the bollards look like? So, but certainly ask questions, offer comments, thoughts that you'd like taken into consideration, and this project will continue to evolve. There is no timeline for doing the other blocks of Bank Lane. Again, I think it'll depend on how the community tolerates months of construction and whether we need a break, and then certainly budget issues as well.
Sure. Thank you. I'll start off, and I'll go north to south with you, Kevin, starting with the North Gateway. And these were just some things that jumped out at me. On the North Gateway, I like your idea there on the northern end of cutting off the parking lot on the one parking lot there. The next parking lot that's further to the south there, that, if my memory serves me, goes out onto Oakwood, right? Is that correct? Or onto Wisconsin also, probably. Let's just assume for the moment that that goes,
Just onto Oakwood, not onto Wisconsin.
okay, it's onto Oakwood, right?
Wisconsin is the ATM for Lake Forest Bank and Trust.
Okay, so my comment was, I like your closing off the first curb cut there. I'd close off the second one there, because there's no need to have cars exit onto Bank Lane from there. There's never that much traffic going in and out of that parking lot. I would just keep it onto Oakwood there and close the access onto Bank Lane, would be my comment there. Everything else here on the North Gateway, I liked, and don't have any other questions on that. On is the next section the Central Block 4?
It would be the North Market Square block if we're just going south.
Yeah, the North Market Square block, let me get my bearings here.
Westminster
Yep,
Square.
and not to throw a complete, craziness into this, but not only on North Market Square, but on South Market Square, was there ever discussion of making it just closing it off to traffic and just making it pedestrian?
Yes, and we actually showed concepts that eliminated parking in both blocks.
Well, there's only maybe
There's not many. I mean,
there's 3 slots here on North, and there's probably 3 slots, if that, on the South.
yeah, yeah, we had that. Yeah, that's exactly right. We had that discussion. We showed the concepts. Folks, I think they thought that was going too far in that scenario.
My vote, if I have one, would be to just make it pedestrian.
Oh, could I second that?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right on the point I wanted to raise. If you made those blocks 2 and 3 pedestrian only, that would give you the real estate to do a lot more with greenery and trees, and it would read like an extension of Market Square, and it would be spectacular, I think.
Yeah, I agree, Paul. And there's also, not here on the North Market Square, but on the South Market Square block, you have 2 or 3 restaurants that are on there. You have the ice cream shop on the corner. They've already taken over COVID and post-COVID, a parking slot there. To your point, Kevin, you raised it and you were spot on. I mean, there's kids on scooters and on bikes and safety and otherwise. I think and you're not losing, again, in my opinion, anything from A, flow, B, parking, or, C, from the business perspective here. And in anything, maybe you'd enhance it.
If I can just add something there, I know the business owners there, and we were at these meetings, I was at them with you, and I heard them discuss it, especially when you're talking about Block 3. You have the part where they drop off the packages and all that stuff. This is crucial, and the businesses said, we need this this parking spot. The other places here, these owners or of the people of the stores were like, no, we need these parking spots. I mean, we had people that come in, and they were also very insistent on it, especially on Block 3, because this has more, you've got a lot more stores there. That was the reason. You had mixture of people that came in, and you can attest to that. You had people say both ways.
Yeah, it's true. The one thing we did do, and I failed to mention, I'm sorry, was that we did eliminate that parking space that was taken over for COVID at Suites. We just made that a plaza. We made that like a corner plaza where you could put some outdoor seats and stuff. So we did lose 1 parking space there. There was resistance to losing. I know there's only 3 there, right? And so there were a few business owners that are on the west that just really saw those as valuable.
And that's why I would just counter that from the business owner standpoint. From a security blanket standpoint, I get they see parking spaces there, but I think in a reality, you're only talking about 3 spaces. And if those 3 spaces are used because, somebody's going in or using it, going to the bank, and it's not being used by any of the retailers there, that argument goes away. My second point on it is, and we don't have to, it's not going to be decided tonight, but if it's decided that it can't be closed for whatever reason, business-wise or otherwise, closed, I definitely would recommend that the city consider on a frequent basis using ballers there for the summer events that happen on Market Square and Christmas lighting seasons, that they frequently put up the ballers and use it to block traffic coming down there.
And that was the thought. We know that both of those streets provide crucial services to businesses, not only parking spaces, but delivery services, trash pickup. There are alleys off of those blocks of Bank Lane. So that's why the removable bollards were so important, so that during the day, we can still accommodate those service needs, but on a Thursday night, on a Friday night, we can put those bollards up and in a more elegant and safer way, close off those blocks frequently with these bollards.
Yeah.
Yep.
So again, if it, for the reasons you just stated, if it can't happen, I would recommend doing the ballers on a frequent basis. Again, just to keep this moving on, block 4, the central block, which I think would be the next one, right?
Yes.
If I wrote this down right. This is, a mess is not the right word, but it really is. Kevin, you were spot on. There's a lot going on here. I can tell you, I drive a big car, like another commissioner member up here drives a big car too. Coming out of that Northern Trust parking spot, parking lot, and taking a right there now, you come close to, and if you're in a big SUV, someone's going to hit a car there. It's not a matter of if, but when. So I don't know how to solve that, and to be honest, because I've looked at it coming out of there, it seems like if you took one or two of those spaces away, the turning radius going west out of the Northern Trust parking lot to take the right to go south, you'd have more room if you took maybe one of those away, but you'd have to take a look at that. And then the other comment I had was on block 5, South Gateway. My recommendation here would be to make it one way going south, which would be consistent with the one way that's going south now on block 4. And yes, there's service trucks and everything else there, but be consistent and it'll give yourself more room in here. And I know there's residents in there, but we've heard from those residents. They've been into the Plan Commission during the central business discussion, and they were vocal, very vocal, on the fact that there is a lot going on this section of street between the Deer Path Inn, between the dumpsters, between the major businesses that have their back alleyway here. I think they would welcome a one-way south because it would give you more room. Did you look at that?
We did. We had a concept that had a lot more. It really leaned into less vehicular and having a wider sidewalk. I will say the residents I talked to that live here and that came to the meeting were like really excited about this, just like clean it up. Let's do the screening. Let's get more landscape out there because they've done all this landscaping themselves and they want to see that investment made. So there was a lot. They were very pleased with this, at least from a aesthetic standpoint.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I really think it would be beneficial, and you don't have to have a lot of, I think you're showing one sidewalk there on the west side, right? You certainly don't need one on the east side, and that would probably be hard to have. So my recommendation would be to make that one-way southbound. And then my last small but minor point is on the materials. And this is a peeve of mine. On the beautiful Market Square, we have those red bricks
Yeah.
that are stained white from salt and water and everything else. And I've asked questions, over time, and a lot of private and public funds went into that Market Square project. And to me, to have all those white stained bricks, it takes away from it. And so whatever bricks you use here, please do not use bricks that'll stain white either on the ground or on your wall. And maybe, do you have a reason why they stained white?
Well, that's that fluorescence of probably like the lime and that stone coming up through the brick because it's a porous material.
Yeah.
But the Whitaker Greer bricks, and if you haven't been to Oak Park, Marion Street, we did those in the street there, multiple blocks in their downtown, and that was 15 years ago. And it's a great product. And they hold up really well. So I haven't
They'll let
seen
you-
that happen there.
Let's use those bricks would be my vote. That's all I have.
Thank you.
I'll go to my right.
Sure. I think you made some great comments. I'm generally in agreement. I definitely think it's worth exploring this notion of maybe more of a pedestrian friendly, less parking spaces. The only thing I would say, and I may be at a different stage of life than you guys are as it relates to, and I guess Jamie might be there too, in terms of the kids that we have in our homes and the ages of those children. Go back if you can to the area by Hometown over there. Yeah, okay. So it's funny because where I thought when you were talking about blocking off that one access point to Bank Lane from the parking lot, I thought, yeah, that made sense to me. From because I don't think you need the two, and I like the ability to add, then have a space for more beautification. It's funny, just as somebody who has 3 children who seem to go to Hometown all the time, there isn't a lot of parking, unfortunately, at Hometown. So you're always looking for parking. I circle through that lot over and over again. So just from a practical perspective, like I can tell you, everybody here who's got teenage kids or grade school kids, when we go to tell them what we're doing, we're gonna be addressing this issue because there are times when I kind of, it drives me nuts that it's one way already, and I gotta come out and then I gotta go around. And if we blocked it and I had to go now all the way around, I can just see tons of people being really frustrated by that, right? So I bring, that's a practical comment in the context of somebody with bunch of teenagers in their house, teenagers who don't drive yet, young teenagers. But that doesn't mean I would be opposed to the notion of locking it down and make it. I know we're talking more, not about the North Gateway and more about as we get closer to Market Square, because I really do think that that's interesting. But I do think it raises the other point, which is we probably would want to talk in more depth to the business owners, because I recall, when next to Valentina was when the Club Pilates exists, or when the Starbucks was over there before it moved, you would be ripping into there all the time, jamming your car, jumping out, running into the Starbucks. So it depends on the business, right? Lake Forest Juice is another example. we go there weekly, multiple times a week. There's 3 spots, right? Lake Forest Food, which is the old Swiss Colony, Lake Forest Food. Same thing. It's we're ripping in there quick. I want to grab what I got to grab. I want to get out of here. So those businesses, I think, have a lot of people that come in and out fast.
Yeah.
And there isn't enough parking to begin with. and I'm not going there for a leisurely stroll when, you know, my 12-year-old who just walked in is looking for Lake Forest juice, right? It's like, I got to get in there. I want to get it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to belabor on making it a pedestrian walkway.
Yeah.
I think, Kathy, you know, there is service and there's probably health and safety and reasons that it needs to stay open. But
No, but I guess what I'm saying simply is specific to those areas. I actually love this idea of like potentially making it all pedestrian. All I'm saying is I just think we have
Yeah.
there are ramifications to consider. That's all. That's what I'm saying.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Moorhead.
I don't really have any questions right now. I'd like to consider it, but one thing based on the prior comment, did you consider at all using like short-term parking, like 15-minute parking spaces, to in case there's like a high volume
Yeah.
traffic, but it's just a short window of traffic?
That would help.
I
This is a lot more if it was 15, because then to Lisa's point, I mean, then you're really protecting those for the business owners and not somebody that's gone to, you know, La Colonia out for lunch for an hour.
I mean, I'll wrap myself out. I'm a tenant of Market Square. My office is above Lululemon. I needed to be there for about 3 hours today, so I parked in Market Square and I
Yeah.
went up to my office. And when I walked out, I walked out going, I hope I don't have a ticket because I violated the parking laws. So I love, and that's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Jay.
Usually it is employees, right? And they, because they have a shift or they're working today. And so, I mean, that's a parking management strategy that I think can be discussed at the city level for sure. And I would be all about that if it makes sense for turnaround and making sure that it's not just, you know, somebody parking there for 4 hours.
I see it all the time. People are dwelling, in particular in Market Square. There are cars in the same spots all day long.
Because one thing that does, if you think about it, is it gets now that spot's open, so you don't have somebody just circling on Bank Lane, like coming back to find that one spot in front of, you know, the smoothie place, you know, whatever it is. So instead, they're able to get in and get out, and then that person leaves, and then somebody else can get in and get out, and it's probably less conflict.
Plus, we do have great parking lots over here.
You do. That's the thing. You're right there.
Park over here and walk around.
Yeah.
Anyway,
That's a good point.
Thank
for the
you.
moment.
Commissioner Naren.
I just had a couple questions, starting with Block 1, since you're there.
Sure.
You still kept the mailboxes, right? These drops?
Yes, we haven't, I mean, conceptually, we still have the space for that to occur, for sure. And so whatever happens in the future, then, you know, if
Just didn't know, like. I
If we
was
have mail in the future.
you're right,
Yeah.
exactly, I don't know. But there, yes, there
Telephone.
is space for that. We haven't eliminated it.
Okay, the couple of other questions. It says that you have lighting on this. What kind of lighting are you doing? Are you doing a big overhead light, like I
No, it's,
see it
yeah,
in Block 1 North?
here it is. There isn't much lighting. And it would, in this, even specifically on the first block we're doing, there's literally one light. And it's that light right there, which is the standard that you guys have in downtown.
Okay.
So we're trying to be aware of that, be very,
Because it doesn't seem like there's a lot of light.
the other thing that we are doing is where we have the little seat walls, we're gonna have a little light in the coping.
Okay.
And so you'll have kind of this ambient light at a lower level. So that does two things. It kind of delineates, again, the pedestrian areas for when it's a little darker. There's, you know, the cars driving, they see that light that's kind of linear, right? So that's the other thing that we're doing.
Okay, so that was on that one. Let's see. I kept the packet from a long time ago, so I could.
Yeah.
On Block 2, when you were talking about, in terms of actually, it's getting closer to where I was talking about, like, you have cobblestone and everything going down. What about Northgate and Southgate, that you do cobblestone in front of the post office and cobblestone on the side of Blue Mercury? So that way it shows that you're entering in to Market Square. I just wanted to throw that out as an idea, because I was wondering about that.
Yeah,
That would
so
never
we
possible.
show the crosswalks as being that
Yeah.
and on both sides. Is that what you mean?
Street, you know how Market Square,
Oh, to actually put it in the street?
or I don't know, just to throw it out, so it shows that you're entering in to, just as an idea.
Okay.
And that, let's see, you mentioned the trees. So you're gonna have more trees here than planters, correct? Am I?
Yeah, there's just
Or-
not tons of landscape space, so, and that's just a maintenance thing too, when you,
Just a couple more, sorry. And then you've got, again, the pedestrian lighting. We're gonna be using the bigger lights on block 2? Is that what you're planning to?
It-
Looks like it's still the bigger lights.
I mean, this is a pedestrian scale light, it's probably
It just seems,
15 feet
This,
tall.
that's the existing one that's there.
Oh, okay.
That's right
Yeah.
Market Square right now.
is it? Okay, I was just curious if it
Yep.
would stay like that. Okay, and then, in terms of what we were talking about with Block 3 at the South Market, just to add, people had talked about at that meeting, there's a parking lot that is right by Little Colonial and everything. And
Yes.
it is never, those spots are like never filled, and every single person that came to these things, every single time said, who owns it, or can we possibly, can you sublet? So that way,
Yeah.
when you were talking about the parking spaces, right, they could be, those could possibly maybe be removed, or you could have your delivery thing as a drop there in the back, in the back by La Colonial, because they have their dumpsters there, you have the drum, then you could make it, so that way, people still, for these businesses, Sage Explorers, Wired, Food and Wine, you could still walk and you could get it, but you're not running, like as you were talking about, hey, I want to run into the juice store real fast. We were talking about that parking lot, and I know you guys know who owns it, but it's just very interesting, and when La Colonial, the owner, was there, or the person that runs it, they're like, no, those aren't our parking spots. We
Right.
would love to be able to have parking there. So was that ever investigated?
Kathy?
Yes. Talk to the owner of that property. It is private property. That property will likely at some point be redeveloped. The pet store
It's part of that property.
is part of that property, and that owner owns all of that parking area right up to the two adjacent buildings. So it is private property. I think on the plan, you do show a potential future pedestrian connection. If redevelopment occurs, I think there's certainly the opportunity to look at some links to the existing parking lots out here behind City Hall, but the city doesn't have control of that property.
Yeah, because I just find it interesting that the store owners don't even get parking spots for their store. That's what I found didn't seem like they did. Okay, so that was another question. And then you said you're not going to put any trees on this block at all, because I thought there were some trees.
There are trees existing in the area we're talking about right now.
Right.
Where it's actually out of the right of way on that property. So there's one shade tree, and it's a pretty narrow tree, but then there's some evergreens that aren't in good shape.
Okay.
We've already talked to the owner about keeping the one tree, just it's off to the side, but the evergreens that don't look good, eliminating those and just putting maybe a hedge in, a landscape hedge or something.
Okay, because I thought Left Bank had some trees or what have you, so that's why I was like, I just didn't remember, I didn't go look at it beforehand. The other question I had is on suites. You said you're doing like a big, huge, like kind of corner around. So are you gonna have tables there? What's your vision for that?
We create a place for them to have tables. So basically, it's just where that parking, right now, they're using it as, kind of that plaza, but it's just parking space, right? Now we've made it
Okay.
a nice paver area with a little delineated wall, and they can put seats out there.
But anybody then can sit there, right?
Yeah, yes.
It's just that.
It's just that we're embracing that it's happening now and formalizing that, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because I know that would be a question for a lot of people, because there's a lot of food stores there and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, wait, I'm almost done, I promise. Just trying to, 5-inch, no, block 3, I got one. And then block 4, you already, making that one way, you already talked about the parking spots in terms of the tightness and the turning. And then block 4, okay. And when you have the walls, when you talk about the walls of block 4, are they solid? Like, are you gonna make it like where it looks like a thick, like the one on the back of your packet here?
Yeah, that's
Okay,
exactly
how
what
it'll
I'm
look.
talking about.
Okay, just checking. And then, almost done, sorry. I just wrote them on the pictures. Yeah, I was just wondering, on Block 5, I think it's wonderful that you will possibly bury those wires. I think that's absolutely brilliant. How come the middle section is paved like that? What is it just seems like just curious.
You know, it's a long block. If you look at how we've done everything throughout the corridor, we're bringing that material in, and all we're trying to do is end this corridor with some of that material in that, to break up that big long block and maybe slow some cars down a little bit. That's really all it's
No, I was just,
trying.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
That's also got to be the corridor that goes through the building.
Yep.
Exactly.
It connects.
That's where that is.
Yep.
Got it, okay. All right, well, thank you, sorry.
You're welcome.
Good.
Well, first, thank you for doing this tonight. I really appreciate the review, and I think your materials have been real helpful. I think it's really high-quality work, and congratulations on that. I think if we were to build this as is, our city would be greatly improved. But with that, I'm going to challenge you a little bit, too, because I think what we're talking about is a generational opportunity. This isn't going to be talked about again for another 30 years plus. And when I think about this in that context, it starts to feel a little bit like a lost opportunity to me. The challenge I would give you is to build a park that goes from Vine to Wisconsin, and then figure out the absolute minimum you have to do to accommodate vehicles through that park to make our city work. And I don't think this meets that test. And I don't know what that looks like. I will tell you that flat out. I don't know what that looks like. But given this isn't going to get looked at again for a generation, I think we need to push ourselves as hard as we can. When you drive up the North Shore, everything looks the same until you get to Lake Forest, right? And we are different and distinctive, and we have an opportunity here to double down on that distinctiveness. And I got a voice in the back of my head that won't shut up, that keeps screaming more trees, right? Because we're a city of trees, and I think they're our greatest asset. And I just, without knowing what it looks like, I feel like we could push harder on this, and would hope that we do. And that's all I got.
Thank you.
You.
Kathy, I'll turn it over to you. Like, procedurally, what is the next step here?
Procedurally, we'll certainly take your comments. This continues and will continue to be an evolving project. There are some potential development sites along Bank Lane. As Kevin referenced, this will serve as a guide, but depending on what those projects are, some of them will likely come before you. And so whether we need more wider sidewalks or greater setbacks if new buildings are proposed, I think that'll go perhaps, Commissioner Thomas, to some of your comments that as we see future development along this site, we may have an opportunity to add more green space and larger areas and better balance the service needs with the opportunity to really build on the unique character of Bank Lane. So I think what you've given us is good. We'll continue to evolve, and as appropriate, we'll come back before you with projects along Bank Lane.
Thank you. And Kevin, thank you for your time this evening.
Appreciate
it, and appreciate what you and your team have done here. That's great.
Great.
I'd ask the public whether there's any more items that aren't on the agenda. Maybe the public doesn't want to speak, understandable. Not to put anybody on the spot, but maybe we'll, in terms of next meeting, Kathy, is anything on the April meeting that's coming up?
It is possible that, I don't know if it'll be in April, but in one of the coming months, you may see another restaurant come before you. You may recall that restaurants within 150 feet of a residential zoning district require a special use permit. We also continue to hear from different developers about the Saunders Road property, but some of you have experienced some of those properties coming before the commission multiple times and then nothing happening. So that's what I see right now.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from any commissioners? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.